Fearless.
Chase.
Bold.
Following.
Courageous.
Search. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Marshall.
And this is
Undaunted
Pursuit.
Hot dang. Boy almighty. Are we live? Live at 5?
Live at 5. Well, actually, what I wanted to say getting on here is welcome everybody back to Undaunted Pursuit podcast.
Howdy.
Glad to have you.
We are glad that y'all are back in the Undaunted Pursuit house. I think I'm a little bit hyper because I had a bunch of Kit Kats before I got on the podcast. So I've got a lot of sugar running through the old body. I should do this more often.
Nah, no kidding, right? You know, and maybe it's because we are. I tell you what, this screen lag is really kind of distracting me because I can see my movements a long time after I've already done them. So here I am just doing all this stuff like this and blah blah blah, yeah. and I can still watch. It falls behind, but no. Here's the truth of the matters, Marshall. Is you're committed to a podcast, and let me back up a little bit. Maybe we have just a little bit more energy because we're starting this just a little sooner. And I had to get off because we've got things going on this evening. The kids are going to like it's called Adventure Kids or Adventure Club or something like that. It's like Awana's, but our church it's called Adventure Club at our church.
Yeah.
So, and then we want to eat dinner as a family and all that stuff. So, so maybe that's why we have just a little bit more energy today. But you're committed at a podcast when you purposefully take off of work early just to come to the podcast.
Come on now. It doesn't get any more committed than that. If you're taking off work early, the place that feeds your mouth and puts money in the bank to do a podcast, hey, it don't get any more committed than that. I'll tell you what.
That's right. That's right. Oh, so anyway, so there you go, guys. I took off early to be here with you guys. And so, yeah. And we've got another exciting thing about tonight's podcast or this week's podcast is we're chapter 6 is a really good chapter.
It is. Got a lot of good stuff going on.
Heck yeah. Anything new happened this week, Marshall? I don't really have much to.
Not like amazing, crazy stuff. I think I sent you that picture yesterday of the new faucets that we bought through Amazon. I wasn't sure how those were going to be.
Yeah.
Of them. And, they're really sturdy, heavy duty. Like they're really good quality. And, we paid $58 per faucet. And at Home Depot, I'm pretty sure they were like $150. So I saved $100. Actually, I saved $100 by going through Amazon, and we bought some other stuff for the house. And we've been needing to do this stuff for a while, so we got a few things to replace and fix and stuff before next week. Because my sister's coming down with a couple of her kids to visit and hang out for a few days, so I took off work for that. And I may have told you about this a while back. I had contacted our little city. I live in a small town, like maybe 600, 500 and something people, small town. But I called one day and I was like, hey, what are you guys doing about like the potholes in the roads and the things that need to be done? Like what's y'all's plan? What's the vision for this place? And the guy said, well, have you ever thought about getting on the city council and joining and trying to make a difference? And I thought, well, not really. But I'll think about it. Well, nothing much came of it. Well, tonight, my wife got a phone call from the gentleman. He called a couple times actually trying to get a hold of me. So I called him back, and I think he kind of forgot that he'd already spoken to me previously, but he asked me again because somebody with the city referred me to, they have to vote you in, kind of a deal. But there's only like 5 or 6 people, right? There's
Right.
and so it's not like I'm running for president here or governor, but however, that's something I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to go to next month to one of the city council meetings and just kind of see what they're all about, see what they're doing, see what the responsibilities are with holding a position like that. And just, maybe I'll go and see if I can't make a difference and influence some people in a positive way. And who knows? I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about. Got to pray about it. But other than that, not a whole lot going on. Work is good, steady. Really can't complain too much. Life is good.
Good. Mm-hmm. Well, good for you. Yeah, I'm thinking about running for city council next time some positions open up. So we'll see how that works out.
You should. We could both do it in our own towns. And it's like I told my wife, I said, city council, then the mayor, and then the mayor of another town, and the mayor of a larger town. And before you know it, I'm the governor of Texas. And then before you know it, I'm 70 years old running for the president of the United States.
There you go. There's some that would argue with you that I was president long before that. Even I still got guys. There was some wild hair that I got when I was in a senior in high school that I wanted everybody to call me Mr. President. And still to this day, there are buddies I graduated with that still call me Mr. President.
Well, I tell you what, if I ever ran for president, I would choose you as my vice president, and we would change this country. So many people would probably hate our guts, but I tell you what, man, this place would turn around in 4 to 8 years. Shoot, they don't even know.
World's not ready. The nation's not ready for us to.
No,
they wouldn't be
no,
prepared for what I have coming down.
No, they couldn't handle this duo. There's no way. They'd be freaking out. But I tell you what would happen is the gospel of Jesus Christ would get spread. That's for darn sure.
Oh, heck yeah. That'd be like top priority. Is
number one.
Number one, in God we trust, would become literal.
Oh yeah. Prayer would be back in schools, mandatory.
Yeah, right.
There's only male and female.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Away, for sure.
Anyway.
We don't need to go down that road tonight. But what the road that we do need to go down, Marshall, is I did not know. I want to back up to this faucet thing. I did not know that Amazon was also shipping out like Sasquatches. They must have. Are you like Harry and the Hendersons there? You got a Sasquatch living with you? Because that picture that you sent me, it looked like old Bigfoot was just hanging out at your house.
Yeah. So what Aaron's referring to here is I sent him a picture of the of the faucet, and I'm holding it, of course, and you can see just the lower part of my arm and my hand. And I'm a hairy guy. Okay, I got hairy arms. I was blessed with a significant amount of hair.
Well, at least you got hairy arms.
At least I got hairy arms. At least my arms aren't bald. Whatever. But so yeah, I guess if you want to call me a Sasquatch, hey, I'll take that. I'll absorb it. I'll run with it. Mr. President, I'm Mr. Sasquatch. What you got?
Being hairy is part of being a man.
You ain't kidding. You saying that, being a man and being hairy. I watched a video of this guy. I don't know who he is. I saw him on Facebook or Instagram, and he's a Christian guy. He's spreading the gospel. He's an older gentleman, a cowboy, he looks like, and he's got a big beard. And something that he talked about is men becoming men again. And he said, I think a lot of the reason why you're starting to see a lot of men with more beards is because, men are starting to be manly again. You're starting to see, men feel like they've had so much taken away from them, and they're like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm taking a stand for what's right. I'm taking a stand for Christ. I'm going back to the roots and going back to the way God intended it to be. And hey, I got my beard going. You got your beard going. Hey, we're just the bearded brothers, right? Come on.
That's right. Unfortunately, there's one of two things happening with my beard here. One is I don't know how much longer it could get. Because it's my beard is not very long, but I just don't think it grows. My beard doesn't grow down; it grows out. It grows very, it grows outward. So I can't stand it. And then number two is I can't stand it to grow past a certain point outwards because I'm tired of it not growing downwards. And but anyway, either way, I have a beard. I love it. And I think every man should have it. And it's funny you bring that. It's funny you bring that up, Marshall. That because I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about the same thing. That's just like the stigma that people have. They made the example that men are either superheroes or if you're watching this, if you're trying to base your manly life off of what you see on TV. A man is either a superhero or he's always been portrayed. He's been portrayed here lately as the fumbling idiot, in a household. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good example of what society has tried to make the man, the male figure. It's just I kind of pride myself in being able to do. I don't fit into that stigma.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, I feel like men used to be, looked up to and revered, and now men are just, not all men, but a lot of men just aren't, and I don't know. It's time as us men to really stand up and be men, stop being a bunch of sissies and, stand up for Christ and stand up for your family and do what's right, put your foot down, I mean, stand up for what you believe in and stop being a sissy.
Yeah. You can be a godly man and still be manly by the world, by the world standards. I mean, we shouldn't strive to be, who cares what the world thinks of us, but you can still be a godly man and still act manly.
Absolutely.
They think that comes as a, what's the word I'm looking for? It gets misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. And you don't have to have a beard to be a
Christians,
man.
like, we're supposed to just.
But it helps.
No. But it. People tend to think. Some people do. Tend to think that if you're a Christian, you're just a pushover. That's not the case.
No.
Heck no.
Not at all. If you think that about either one of us, you got another thing coming. I can promise you that much.
That's right. But anyway, well, so much pretty good. There's several good little points in this first little stint of this podcast this week that are title worthy. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. We got all sorts of stuff going on in this bad boy. Hey, but before we go on, did y'all? So we got some snow yesterday. We got about 2 or 3 inches of snow yesterday, and overnight and this morning it's already melted and gone. It doesn't look like it snowed. But have y'all gotten any snow, or you got some coming?
No. We've got a bunch coming.
Do you?
We got. Well, according to the forecast, I mean, we got a dusting last night, and a lot of it melted off today. But it's supposed to get just downright cold here in the negatives, towards a little closer to the end of the week and into the weekend. It's supposed to be awfully cold, and so I had to. The reason we didn't get on last night was because I had gotten a trailer load of wood last week, and we bucked all the wood on Saturday. Didn't have a chance to get to splitting it until last night, and it's like it was starting to snow a little bit, and I was like, we got to get this done. Let's get this all split. Luckily, thank the Lord for friends with a wood splitter that have let us house it at our house. Because once you go wood splitter, you don't go back.
Absolutely.
I don't know what I would do. Okay. I was sore enough having to split this wood and carry it to the lean-to. And Ashley, of course, Ashley jumped right in and helped too. She ran the wheelbarrow and stuff. But after the night was done, lifting those rounds up onto the splitter and packing handfuls of wood while she ran the wheelbarrow, I was a sore dude. And imagine having to split that all by hand. Some of it's a little more green than I would want it to be, but beggars can't be choosers. I didn't have time to go cut wood this year. So, cause we ran out of summer, and fire camp got us. And, so anyway, I'm having to source my wood. It's a little green. Splitting that by hand would have been I don't know. It would have taken me all night to get through 5 rounds.
Oh, absolutely. After talking about manliness, some might say that because you didn't use an axe to split it and you use a splitter, that you're less manly. How do you feel about that, Aaron?
I don't care what they say. I can swing a maul, but I like using that splitter, so I don't care what anybody says. I can split 3, 4, 5 times the amount of wood in a couple hours than what you could do splitting it by hand.
Hey, work smarter, not harder, right? The older you get, you got to use your head.
That's right. Well, it's just like the other, what was it? Last year I was splitting wood, and I was sitting there splitting it. I had the boys putting the rounds up on the splitting log, and I go to swing, and I just dropped down on one knee. I was like, okay, boys, my back went out on me. And I was like, okay, boys, I need you to finish this because I can't get up. So it's a back saver.
Oh, absolutely.
If anything.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, honestly, if I had a wood splitter or log splitter, I'd be using it all day long. I'm not about to sit there and split wood for hours or days. It's just not worth it. If I can work smarter, not harder, bomb it. I'm not afraid of hard work, but if I can use my head and make it easier on myself and get a lot of work done or get twice as much work done, I'm all over it all day long.
Well, we've got, just think about it, Marshall. We've got a full-time job, whatever extracurricular activities the kids are in, a podcast to run, and cooking to do, not just me, but the family as a whole, and 5 kids. I don't have time to sit and split wood by hand. This takes the ease off of it. I can get this done and move on to the next project. A house to clean, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So yeah. Don't.
There's no doubt at all. I'm right there with you. I mean, I don't have the kids or anything, but I completely understand.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No. Nope. Not at all. Ain't no one got that.
Unless you're retired, I guess.
But then you might be too old to swing an axe.
Right? I don't know. My grandma, she can hold her own. She's 86 or 80 something. But I think she could probably outperform me on wood splitting.
Well, I tell you, my papa, he's 90 years old. He turned 90 last year, I think. Anyway, he's 90 years old. He still gets out there and mows and weed eats and trims his hedges and all that stuff. And they could very easily have somebody come and do it for him. But he gets out there, takes care of it himself. 90 years old.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
Yep. All right, Marshall, let's get into this, and excuse me. I kind of want to cover, because I want to get through all of 6 tonight, and the main reason for doing that is I want to get to the last part of 6. And so we're going to take this first part of 6 and go through it kind of quickly, because I want to get into the meat and potatoes of chapter 6, and that's not until towards a little closer to the end, halfway through 6. And to the end. So let's get into it, huh?
Let's do it.
The exciting part of the podcast.
And now, a word from our
Hold on.
sponsor. Aaron, did you hear the word from our sponsor?
All right, so here we go. Yeah, she's sitting right here.
I didn't hear one. You want to know why? It's because you don't have any.
Because we don't have any, right? We need one. By the way, any of you guys listening want to sponsor this? We will gladly take it.
Absolutely.
And so, well, all right. So, chapter 6, Luke chapter 6. It's great. I'm kind of excited to get to it. And like when I said that we were going to kind of blast through the first part of it, because I want to, there's like two really like good main sermons throughout the New Testament, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but one that we're going to cover tonight is the sermon that Jesus preaches, the Sermon on the Mount. Wouldn't you say, Marshall? Like this is probably one of the greatest. This when we get into this towards the end of chapter 6, this sermon that Jesus preaches is kicking off the new way of thinking. It's the official start to the kind of way I take it. I'm kind of rambling here, but he's going to put this out here as this is what he's here to do. This is how we should think. This is the new covenant. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I mean, I just like in chapter 6 how there's so many teachings throughout the whole chapter from Jesus. I mean, he's got a lot to say right here in Luke chapter 6, and so there's a lot of good information you can take from this and you can absorb. Now, last night when I was reading through this, I didn't read through all of chapter 6 last night. I listened to it previously, but I did dig into the first part of chapter 6 because it was talking about just the Sabbath and all that. So I was kind of digging into the Sabbath and trying to get a better understanding on all what that meant, because I thought it was interesting myself. So I kind of dug into the opposite end of things. But I say we just dig into it and see where this goes and get into the end of it and let's power through this.
Yeah. So of course, here in the first part of 6, we're going to look at a couple of Sabbath days. Now, if you are following the Chosen series, and I thought this was kind of interesting, it's kind of creative of them, and I understand why they did this, but you watch the show, and they portray this as happening all in the same day. He goes to the synagogue, he heals the man with the withered hand, and then they show him walking through the field of wheat, picking the wheat and eating it because they're obviously hungry. And all on the Sabbath day, and the Pharisees confronting him and all that. Well, when you go back and read it in this book of Luke, or this chapter of Luke, it's separated. It happened 2 separate Sabbath days, and like you, Marshall, I want to encourage everybody to go and read about what the Sabbath is. I've done a little research on Sabbath and what they do and there's too many rules to go through it on here, but because my family and I want to go to Israel at some point in the very near future, and so it's like, I wanted to read about it and learn a little bit more about, because they're still practicing Sabbath over there to this day. So it's interesting. So go research that and see why what we're about to discuss was kind of frowned upon, and you'll notice that throughout the whole Bible as well.
Yep.
So here on one Sabbath day, we see Jesus passing through the fields of grain, and his disciples were picking these heads of grain, like we just previously talked about, and eating them, which was a big no-no, according to these legalists. And it says here that they were rubbing them in their hands and eating them. And, of course, the Pharisees, being who they are, obviously following Jesus around, trying to find some way to chastise him for... They're always trying to find something wrong with Jesus. And so what are you doing? That's unlawful on the Sabbath.
Yeah, and the Sabbath, the Jewish legal tradition about the Sabbath is that it's forbidden to harvest on the Sabbath. I mean, they had like 39 different categories of things you couldn't do on the Sabbath. Like Aaron was saying earlier, there's all these different categories and laws and stuff that they were against on the Sabbath.
Yeah. Oh, and just think about it. They were worried about these guys eating, and yet didn't make any mention of them walking, because that's even against the rule the rules on the Sabbath too. Is walking so far is a big no too. I think, right, Marshall?
Say that one more time.
Walking is even, you can only take so many steps on the Sabbath day, right?
You might be right. I'm not 100% on that because I haven't read all the different categories that they have. I was just really focusing on this one that they were talking about there in the first part of chapter 6. But I mean, there's a very good possibility.
So these Pharisees are confronting them all about breaking this law. And Jesus, of course, as he does, I'm not saying that sarcastically, but I'm saying that Jesus is going to respond to him with a parable about it's funny because he does kind of insult them, like, have you not read the scriptures? And he goes in explaining how David, when he was hungry, he and those who were with him, he went into he called, it says in my Bible here, the house of God. I'll kind of read this because it starts off in verse 4, how he went into the house of God and took and ate the consecrated bread, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priests alone, and how he also gave it to the men who were with him. Jesus saying to him, the Son of Man. So here he is talking, referring to him again. We talked about this in last week's episode, I believe, right, Marshall?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to point out again to these Pharisees. Maybe it was a different set of Pharisees than the last time we saw him. But he's going to point out that he is over. The Messiah, Jesus, is over the Sabbath.
Yeah. Yep, and that's something I was going to point out is that the Creator is always greater than the creation. Like Aaron was saying, he was over the Sabbath. So
yep. So as we all know at this point in time, that Jesus can do what he wants because he created everything. So then the story moves on to. It says in verse 6, on another Sabbath, he went into the synagogue, he taught, and there was a man there whose right hand was withered, probably withered. I think we can all imagine that it was probably curled up, that it was probably a lot weaker than the other one. Anyway, so here's this guy with a withered hand. And, Jesus, obviously, the scribes and Pharisees were watching him and it says in my Bible here, with malicious intent to see if he would actually heal somebody on the Sabbath day. Here we are on the Sabbath. And there's another one of those Sabbath rules is you can't heal on the Sabbath or pretty much any type of work was against the Jewish law. And so Jesus, knowing everything, aware of their thoughts, he said to the man with the withered hand, get up and come forward. And the guy gets up and he stands there in front of Jesus. And then, can you imagine this? So he turns to the scribes and the Pharisees and he says to him, and it says, Jesus said to them, I ask you directly, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath or to do evil, to save a life or destroy it? He's trying to make a point here.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter. It is better to do good.
Oh,
because
no
where
doubt.
we're going to see this story in this because where we see the story going in this chapter is he's going to be talking about how we should treat each other. If you don't have anything to add, Marshall, I'm going to
let's go on.
Keep moving on. So after looking at them all, he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And the guy did. And his hand was fully restored. And so, of course, this angered the scribes and the Pharisees, and they started discussing with each other what are they going to do? What are they going to do about this, about Jesus? So let's see here. I was just kind of looking at the bottom here. So here's something interesting in the little sub notes. Going back to the Jesus saying the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Regardless of the laws and customs that the Pharisees cited, Jesus has authority over the Sabbath. Jesus' claim of divine authority here is similar to his claim of authority to forgive sins. Just to kind of give us a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so that last little bit in verse 11, Marshall, they were filled with senseless rage. The term here means irrational or mindless anger. The parallels in Matthew 12:14 and Mark 3 verse 6 make it clear that the Pharisees at this point started to plot against Jesus in earnest after this confrontation.
Yeah.
All right. I was just waiting for you to see if you would have anything to add.
No, I have nothing to add on that. I'm ready to keep on going and get into the good stuff, the better stuff.
Okay. I know. That's why I said I just kind of wanted to go through this first part real quick. And and I'm going to skip to the Beatitudes for this. Well, verse 12 through verse 19. Verse 12 through verse 17, sorry. Oh, dang. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to keep 16. Backing up through verse 16. Yeah, there you go. He's explaining. So what I gathered, disciples were students.
Right.
And now you can see that Jesus is going to appoint these 12 apostles now, being able to they're going to have they're going to be special messengers and personally chosen representatives of Jesus the Messiah.
Yeah.
Instead of they've upgraded now from being just students to now they're apostles. So anyway, and then and go back and read it. They list the 12 that Jesus chose. And Jesus comes down and stands on a level place. There's a large crowd along with his disciples and a vast multitude of people. So multitude being many. And these people were coming from all over to listen to Jesus and to be healed. Even, and it says even here in verse 18, even those with unclean spirits. And people were trying to touch him because the healing power was literally coming from Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, even just to touch him, he could heal him just from a touch. You know, just from people touching him. So here we are. We're to the good stuff. The Beatitudes, like I said before, this message is ushering in the new covenant and how people should start acting. And I really love his wording here. He begins speaking blessed. And it's when he says blessed, it's spiritually prosperous, happy to be admired. Are you who are poor? In that, when he says poor, it's in spirit, and those of devoid of spiritual arrogance, those who regard themselves as insignificant. For the kingdom of God is yours, both now and forever.
Yeah.
And so, going on, verse 21, blessed are you who hunger now for righteous, for you will be completely satisfied. Which I wanted to stop right there. Blessed are you who hunger, and that's something we should all do. I find myself each and every day. The more you study the Bible, the more you converse with God, and you have a genuine hunger for righteousness.
Absolutely.
And
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's what Aaron's saying there is very true. Is the more you pursue Christ, the more you dedicate that time every day with Him, reading His Word, studying His Word, spending time in prayer, talking to Him. I mean, the better it is. I mean, I think the closest I was ever to God and my relationship was the strongest was when I went through my divorce several years ago. That was when I was the closest, and because I was so close and I was so wouldn't say hopeless, but I was just like I was hungry for God, and I was hungry to hear from Him and hungry to do whatever it was He wanted me to do. And when you're that desperate to serve God, and you want to, and it's not necessarily being desperate, when you just want that so bad because I mean, everything seems to be falling apart around you. That's when it's the best. I mean, that's when I heard the Holy Spirit speak to me for the first time in my life. So, absolutely, Aaron.
Yeah, the more fulfilled your life will be.
Yeah,
the more you hunger towards that righteousness and right standing with God, the more fulfilling life will be.
Mm-hmm.
He goes on to say, "Blessed are you who weep now." What he's for you will laugh. What that in the little in parentheses. Blessed are you those who weep. You should be repentant, truly repentant over your sins, over the wrongdoings against God. Blessed are those people who actually recognize that they are sinful, that they are not worthy of God's grace, but yet he still gives us grace and mercy. And we will laugh when we will have joy when the burden of sin is lifted.
That statement is so true, and that part of that verse is so true, because I mean, I can't tell. I mean, I mess up every day, right? But there's been so many times when I've been asking God for forgiveness, and in the midst of that asking for Christ for forgiveness, I was joyful. I was filled full of happiness. And sometimes I actually laughed because I was just so thankful and so blessed by his grace and his forgiveness for me. Even though I knew I didn't deserve it and wasn't worthy of it, I was just so thankful, because when somebody has that much love and grace for you, all you can do is rejoice.
Yeah. And look at the theme here, that as we go through these Beatitudes, that the theme is we tend to elevate people who of higher status and think that they're happy, the rich people, the successful people, in quotations, and the people that have more joy are the ones that put their faith and trust in God. These people that are those who are lower in status and humble people, who he's pointing out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it goes on in verse 22, blessed are you when people hate you and exclude you and insult you and scorn your name as evil because of the Son of Man. So blessed are the people, we can put this into simpler terms, and it blessed are the people who are shunned because of their walk with Christ. Or you see that a lot. Oh, he's just another Christian. We don't want him in our friend circle. You see that a lot as an adult today.
Oh, it's probably worse as an adult.
Right. I mean, people tend to, they don't want to, they think that you're going to judge them or whatever the reason is. And so you get excluded from these friend circles.
Yeah.
But, and he kind of wraps this up in verse 23 on what we as believers can all look forward to. And this is our, despite everything, the persecution, the tough times, and the whatever we think that may or may not make us happy in this life, this is our prize at the end of the race, is to rejoice on that day and leap for joy, for your reward is in heaven. So for your reward in heaven is great. It's inexhaustible. For their fathers used to treat the prophets in the same way. So our reward is in heaven. Our real home is heaven. How great of a day will that be?
I can't wait.
I made this statement to Ashley. We've been talking in the mornings. We've been kind of going through Isaiah, and I don't know how we got down this, how we got to talking about this, but I find myself more and more thinking that it's like I'm ready. Not I'm ready for Jesus to come. It's I'm not saying this like I want to die. It's like I'm ready for Jesus to come. I want to go to heaven with my whole family. I want my whole family, and I want us all to be together. To be together for all eternity.
Right. Absolutely. That's something.
That's what I strive for. I want.
Yeah, that's something that my wife, she says sometimes is, she can't wait to get to heaven. And oftentimes I think where that comes from for her is because all the pain and stuff that she's dealt with over the years, it's so much, right? Your body gets to where you can only handle so much, and it's exhausting. And so you're like, oh, I can't wait till I get to heaven. That way you don't have to deal with this. You don't have to deal with this earthly body anymore and the pain that comes with it. And my response to her always is, well, I can't wait to get there, and I want to go really bad. However, I don't feel like God's done with me yet here on earth. I don't think everything's been fulfilled yet. And I want to make sure that's all fulfilled before I go.
Exactly. And that's, I wasn't trying to sound morbid like I want to die, but I want to be with Jesus. Paul talks about this a lot too in Rome. Anyway, Paul, I can't remember where it was at, but all of creation is groaning for Jesus's return. Yeah. And so why wouldn't we want to? When we know that our reward is in heaven, is eternity with Jesus.
Well, it's so much better than what
wouldn't want that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than what you got going on here, which we kind of get into next.
Exactly. So now Jesus is turning around now, and he's going to give us some things he's going to give us examples of what not to be like. And judgment is coming when he says, but woe to to you who are rich. And, he's not saying that you can't have money in this life. He's saying those who are rich, they put those who place their faith in possessions while remaining spiritually impoverished.
Yeah, you'll get temporary fulfillment with that money and the things that come with it, but you're not going to get that spiritual fulfillment that God has for you.
No. And he goes on to say, for you are already receiving your comfort in full, and there is nothing left to be awarded to you. Woe to you who are well fed now, for you will be hungry. That's pretty cut and dry. I mean, we are we as Americans in a whole we're well fed, but you want to have faith in God, that he will provide for you. That's where instead of trying to do this on your own, what he's getting at is he wants he wants you to rely on him. Don't rely on your own ambitions or on your own what's the word I'm looking for, Marshall?
Like,
I don't know. I'm not very good with big words, but you can't rely on yourself. If you think you've got a lot of stuff in the freezer, and that's all on your own doing, then you're down the wrong path. So put your faith in God that he will provide for you. Woe to you who laugh now, enjoying a life of self-indulgence, for you will mourn and weep and deeply long for God.
Again, cut and dry.
Woe to you when all cut and dry. I don't think I didn't really need to go into depth on the other one either, but it's all fine. Well, here we will go in depth in that. You think you have it good now, but in the end, you see that a lot. Especially the celebrities.
Yeah.
They look happy on the outside, but what do they ultimately need? God. That's why you see such a high rate of suicides. These people look happy because they have all that earthly stuff. They've got the food, they've got the riches, but they're still missing something. They're missing God in their life.
Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
You can sit there and appear to be happy to everybody because you got money, you got the big house, the cars, your bank's loaded, you get all the toys and the fun stuff, and it looks great. You're popular, everybody knows you, whatever. But when it comes down to it and you go home at the end of the day, what do you have? Who do you have? What do you like?
Yep.
What do you? Who you turn it to?
Yep, and that's where it goes in. For you will mourn and weep and deeply long for God. You don't find true peace and true happiness without God.
Yep.
26. Woe to you when all people speak well of you and praise you, for their fathers used to treat the false prophets in the same way. I don't really know where to go with that one. I assume that it's
well, I can explain it
about do it.
Not because it's what I know, but just from my little explanation at the bottom of my Bible here that helps me out tremendously. But it says many false prophets lived during Old Testament times. They were praised by kings and crowds because their predictions, prosperity and victory in war, were exactly what the people wanted to hear. But popularity is no guarantee of truth, and human flattery does not bring God's approval. Sadness lies ahead for those who chase after the crowd's praise rather than God's truth. That's what chapter 26 is saying there. I'm sorry, verse 26. Yeah. My bad.
All right. Hold on just a second. I got it.
While Aaron's doing his little thing, I want to say to any believer out there, any Christian, whether you're new in the faith or not, and especially if you're new in the faith, I highly advise you find yourself a good study Bible. Mine's a Life Application Study Bible. It's the NIV version. But I tell you what, this has helped me so much understand the Scripture, because the Scripture can be very difficult to understand. Some of it's plain, and it's cut and dry, but some of it is very, very difficult to understand. So this is something I would advise those of you who are listening, if you're a new Christian or even you've been a Christian for years, get you one of these, because it really helps out.
Agreed. And it doesn't matter. Don't concern yourself over what translation you want to go with, NIV, ESV, Amplified, whatever it is. Get a Bible.
Yep.
Get a good study Bible. There's plenty of material out there on the internet that you can research each one. You can see them side by side. Look for the wording that you can best understand, and because it's the same message in everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
in every translation, it's the same. It's the same story. It's all God's word. It's
Mm-hmm.
just put in a way either translated differently or whatever. But it all boils down to the same thing. So
Yeah.
don't concern yourself over that. Just get you one.
Yep.
So, verse 27, Jesus says, "But I say to you who hear me and pay attention to my words, love, as we've discussed before on this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're all about as Christians. And that's being unselfishly seeking the best or the higher good for your enemies, for the people you don't like, for the people you don't get along with, or even do. Even even the ones that you are friends with, love them. Make it a practice to do good to those who hate you." And I think it's safe to say that, and that goes for everybody, not just those who hate you, but even more for those who hate you, because that's those who hate you are who needs God the most.
Yeah.
Verse 28, "Bless and show kindness to those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you." And we've all heard this one. "Whoever strikes you on the cheek, offer him the other one also." Simply ignore, and here's the explanation. What that means is to simply ignore insignificant insults or losses and do not bother to retaliate. Maintaining your dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sweat the small stuff. He's talking about you don't need to. We had a saying when we were kids: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me."
That's a fact.
"Whoever takes away your coat, do not withhold your shirt from him either." Be hospitable. If they obviously, if they wanted to take it, give them more. Show it's part of showing kindness, showing God's love. Eventually, they will either see the light or God will have His judgment on them. But they'll get what's coming to them. As far as you're concerned as a Christian, show that love and kindness that Jesus would.
Yeah, pretty much. Like what my Bible says here, it says, loving our enemies means acting in their best interest. We can pray for them. We can think of ways to help them. And keep in mind that Jesus loves the whole world, even though the world is in rebellion against God. Jesus asks us to follow his example by loving our enemies. And then he says, and it says, grant your enemies the same respect and rights as you desire for yourself, which, we all know our enemies, it can be anybody. It could be the person driving down the road and cuts you off, flips you off, and starts yelling, screaming, cussing at you, pulls a gun on you. Hey, as hard as it is, you got to pray for that gal or that guy.
Yep.
Trust me, that's a hard thing for me to do. If someone walked into my house and started stealing stuff, or walked in my garage, I caught him stealing stuff, I'm supposed to sit there and say, go for it, bud. Have it. Take it away. It's going to be hard to do.
Yeah. It is hard to do. I'm going to have to pick this up because we're running a little, getting a little short on time here. But then, go back and read this. Give to everyone who asks of you. Whoever takes away what is yours, don't demand it back. Don't be an Indian giver.
Mm-hmm.
Be quicker to give than to receive. We see this. We tell our kids this all the time. Those of you who have kids, or of course we've all been kids. We all heard this from our parents. Treat others the same way you'd want to be treated.
Yep.
You don't want to. It goes on in verse 32. If you only love those who love you, they already love you. What good is that?
Yeah.
So love those who don't love you.
Absolutely. So I know, Aaron, like you said, we're running.
On.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know, like you said, we're running short on time, and I know at the beginning of this you had some key things you wanted to get to towards the end of it. Do you want to kind of skip through some of this and get to that key stuff, and you viewers can go back and read the rest of this?
Yeah. I really wanted to cover was the Beatitudes and the blesseds and the woes and
Gotcha.
And where we're going under this new covenant. And it was, I just wanted to drive home the fact that what Jesus is preaching here is the new covenant, is to love your enemies is to love each other. And that whole section right there, if you go back and read that, go back and read all of chapter 6. But he goes through several different things, several different ideas and on how examples. That's the word I'm looking for, on how to treat others.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus goes into talking about judging others, and he talks about the fruit in people's lives, and he teaches about building on a solid foundation. This is all Jesus teaching throughout this entire chapter. It's amazing stuff. So
it's amazing, and I love it. And I wish we had more time to really discuss it, and we could split this up into 2 episodes. But it's pretty self-explanatory, and it really, verse 38. I love verse 38. It wraps it. It summarizes everything that he's talking about in this one verse, and it says, "Give, and it will be given to you. They will pour into your lap a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, with no space left for more. For the standard of measurement you use when you do good to others, it will be measured to you in return."
Yeah.
I think that summarizes everything that he's talking about. You notice that when you do it, you find fulfillment both spiritually and physically when you treat others the way you want to be treated, when you show that hospitality, that you feel good when you feed somebody that's hungry, when you give somebody who needs something, and expecting nothing in return.
I mean, especially when you're doing it from a God-hearted perspective, and you're doing it because maybe you're driving down the road and you see somebody on the side of the road and they're holding up that sign, and how many times you've driven by and been like, I don't trust him to give him money. He may go buy drugs with it. Well, that's not between us. That's between God and that person, what they do with that money, and God will deal with them accordingly. But I mean, if you're listening to God, you listen to Holy Spirit telling you to do something, help somebody, love somebody, whatever it may be, for one, do it. But two, the joy and the peace and just everything that God blesses you with by doing that, it's amazing, and it's well worth it.
Yep. And so there, towards the end of the thing, we're not going to read anymore. He goes into an analogy about an analogy or a parable about how we shouldn't. We are all flawed people. We all have something. We all have our shortcomings, and how can we, like you said, Marshall, that judging others, don't be that. Don't judge each other. How can you look at the speck in your brother's eye when you have a log in your own eye? We have our own problems. We're there to lift each other up.
Yeah.
We're all there, even Christians, non-Christians alike. We're here to lift each other up and to help support each other as a whole. That's what Jesus is trying to get at here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
so. Go back.
It's funny. Yeah, guys, go back and listen to this, or go back and listen to it. Go back and read all this stuff. It's a great chapter. A lot of good stuff here, and plus, it's not just one of the apostles speaking; it's Jesus speaking. So when God speaks, you better listen, because it's going to be good, and He's got a good reason for it.
That's right. That's all red letters.
The red letters.
There's a reason they're red letters. It's something to listen to. Yeah. Take to heart.
It's
read it several times.
For no reason.
No, just read it once. Yeah, right. You're getting ready to say, Marshall, it's funny that I bring up.
Oh, well, you brought up the speck in your own eye. I think I was being judgmental a couple of days ago about something or someone. And my wife, she said that to me. She's, don't be pointing out somebody else's, log or speck or whatever their sin is when you've got, your own junk you have to mess with. And we were just kind of joking with her, but it's scripture for one, but it's a very good, it's a very true statement. I mean, and 90% of the time, if you're judging somebody for something, I guarantee you, if you stop and look at yourself, you probably either you're dealing with that same sin or you've dealt with it at some point in time.
Yep. Very well put, Marshall. So there you go, guys. Love one another. Treat others like you want to be treated. And put your faith and trust in Jesus. That pretty cut and dry.
Amen.
I'm looking forward to a glorified body.
Mm-hmm. You got that right.
All right. We covered that really quickly, Marshall, but I think that pretty well covers chapter 6.
For the most part. I mean, yeah, we didn't go through the whole thing, but a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty cut and dry. There's not anything that's really in depth there, but yeah, it was good stuff. I love it.
Heck yeah. All right. I gotta hit the road, man.
Gotta go. Sounds good. Me too.
All right. Yeah, dinner's probably ready. But guys, thanks for listening. And we'll see you guys next week on Undaunted Pursuit podcast. Questions, concerns, prayer requests, anything you want us to talk about, mail at undauntedpursuit.com. And you'll hear the rest of it on the outro. So see you guys.
See you later.
Hey guys, and thank you for listening to Undaunted Pursuit podcast. Give us a good rating on iTunes, good review, leave us 5 stars, and follow us on YouTube. Click that subscription bell. Keep up to date with the newest episodes.
And don't forget to follow us on other social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to email us at undauntedpursuit@gmail.com and go to our website at undauntedpursuit.podbean.com.
And don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, go to Patreon, follow us on Patreon. Subscribe to our channel there. There's a small tier for donations. Any help, any support, this podcast is made possible by you, the patron. We thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
When they said, boy, you'll be a star, they couldn't see the pride in me, buried deep inside of me. When they said, kid, you've got some heart, they didn't see the dark in me, hidden in the heart of me. So please, help me to be something I could never be on my own. 'Cause on my own, I still got this wretched heart of stone. Heart of stone. Oh, when they said, kid, you'll go so far, oh, they didn't see the lies I believed, destroying my trajectory. When they said, don't you be so hard on yourself, they didn't know the death in me, buried in the depths of me. So please, help me to be something I could never be on my own. 'Cause on my own, I still got this wretched heart of stone. This wretched heart of stone. I've still got this heart of stone. It's breaking with each breath I'm taking. I feel it grinding into dust. I'm willing to make it solid in you. I found that all I'll do is ruin everything I touch. I've still got this heart of stone. It's breaking with each breath I'm taking. I feel it grinding into dust. I need you to make it soft and new. I found that all I do is ruin everything I touch. Everything I touch. Summer